I think Hiro Mashima just wanted to remind us that even though Ultir is old now, she still had the best ass in all of Fior. So this chapter of Fairy Tail, we didn't get too much progression in it. For the most part, the main thing that happened was Gray was turned into a little kid again by that same guy from the Succubus Guild. And to be honest with you, it's starting to seem kind of like a repetitive thing with this whole thing of them turning into kids one after another. I think that if Hiro was going to turn everybody into kids, or a large group of whoever's on this island into kids, then he should have just did it in one go and not be like, okay, I'm gonna get this one, then that one, then that one, then that one. It should have just been all in one lump, Erza and all of them, because it's safe to assume that there's gonna be more people turning into kids after this, unless he's gonna leave like mainly Lucy and Wendy as their normal age, and then they're gonna be like, since they are still the weakest technically in the group that they're in now, then maybe he'll leave them as adults. But it's safe to say that he's turning them, most of them, into kids anyway. So it's like, why is he continuing to do it one after another and not just all in one group? Learning that Flair was naive, it was safe to assume that she was to begin with, and we find out pretty much that when she was on this island, she was the only one that was of her size, and when she left, she pretty much was just like scared and like just not knowing what the hell is going on and very naive to everything, and that's why she went into Raventail and pretty much just started hating Fairy Tail, because she was just like, this must be the normal thing to do. It's pretty much like, there's a group of people and they all have hatred for one particular person, and it's like, yo, you want to be down with us, this is the norm, you better hate that person is a piece of shit, even though that person really didn't do anything to them. So it's pretty much just like that. She was naive and they were brainwashing her. So she wasn't really that bad of a person to begin with. Wrong place, wrong time type of situation. Minerva is really getting that revenge. I'm not gonna lie. She's giving that ass whipping to Erza. But it's still on some punk shit, because you have to wait till she turns into a kid for you to try to get your revenge again. It's like, I don't know, Minerva. Like, yeah, you're going in hard, but you're doing it in a cheating way. But then again, you are Dark Guild, so that's what villains do. I ain't feeling that lowly shit though. Like all the little shots of Erza, and then they put the little smoke cloud over under the dress and everything. I ain't feeling none of that. Like, really, if you're gonna turn her into a chibi, that's one thing, but then to do like little lowly fan service shit, no, we don't need that stuff. It's bad enough we already got Wendy doing that shit. I don't need some creepy Erza shit as well. And I guess the main focus of this chapter, and to be honest with you, it's a big part of this arc, is Gray getting over his past, because just before this, the Ultir shit happened, and then now when he got shrunk back into a kid, he started to remember everything with Deliora, his master, and it's just really showing that this is a big part of this arc, and this is probably going to be something that he really wants to do. And I can definitely see at the end of the arc him at the very least being able to turn Ultir into pretty much back into her normal state. Maybe it might not be able to happen. Maybe she'll die beforehand, which will be even more emotional and more impactful. But I can see that that's something that's big. This is going to be like kind of a Gray arc. And I mean, Gray Fullbuster. This will be like his arc, because it's going to mainly be about him trying to get redemption for what happened to his master and his master's daughter, as well as just trying to feel better about himself and like do what he feels needs to be done and the right thing to do. And that's why I feel like it was mainly pushed when he turned into a kid, that he started remembering everything. It's because this is something very important in this arc, Gray and his past and what happened with Ultir. And I think that was a nice touch that Hiro set that up for the beginning of this arc, and then throughout it we keep seeing glimpses of it and Gray trying to get over this. I don't know what the hell he thinks he's going to be able to do, because if Erza's getting stomped in by Minerva in her little form, then I don't think Gray's going to be able to do much unless he can try to trick this guy, because he doesn't look like the smartest guy. So maybe Gray can trick him, maybe his ice, he can freeze his legs or do something crazy, but it's going to be a hell of a strong battle if he even wants to attempt to try to take him out. Maybe if he runs into Natsu, him and Natsu can team up or something. Let's get that fire and ice, baby. And there was something interesting that this guy mentioned. He said that you're pretty much standing at the gates of the underworld. Now, does he mean that metaphorically, that pretty much he's, part of a dark guild, so that's the underworld? Is there an actual place where they, pretty much are in the underworld? And he's saying like you're at the gates of it, pretty much there's an entrance to it, and if so, then maybe that could be where we're leading towards at the end of this arc, or after, shortly after we resolve this problem. Maybe the underworld is something where they're going to have to head to. Again, it could be metaphorical, but it also could be an actual place. That'd be interesting to see Fairy Tail enter the underworld, but if they do go into something like that, it's going to be dark and hectic, and I would like for them to be resolved and go back into their normal form, unless it's like a time thing and eventually they'll pop back into their normal form after a certain amount of time. But I think this big guy is going to have to get his ass whipped first for them to turn back, although the Eternal Flame still could have something to do with it. And it's interesting that Flair says she's going to take them to where the Eternal Flame is. I'm sure that the Eternal Flame is not even there, or it's frozen, or she's going to say what the hell happened to it when they get there. Overall, this chapter, really the only big progression we had, like I said, was the Gray stuff. We have a little bit of pretty much Erza getting her ass kicked by Minerva and a couple other things happening, but it wasn't the biggest chapter and it wasn't the most progression at all. I give it a 6 out of 10. It was a fine chapter. Could have done a lot more, and I just feel like the pacing of this is kind of like starting to get a little bit slow, and the whole thing with turning them into chibis one after another is feeling a little bit repetitive. Even the art, I could have sworn the way Gray looked when he turned into a chibi was almost identical to how Natsu looked when he turned into a chibi. So let's get a little bit of a move on here, Hero. You're doing a good job so far, but right now starting to tread into some muddy water, and we don't want none of that. Let me know what you think. First of all, this whole thing with Gray pretty much just being like Gray's arc, you know, the ice and everything is all symbolic for Gray's arc. Do you think that Gray is going to be able to get some sort of cure for Ultir and pretty much get her to go back to her young form? You think she'll die before that? What do you think is going to happen with that whole situation? And what do you think about this whole gates of the underworld thing where the guy was trying to explain and then he said, I'm not explaining to a kid? You think there's an actual location that they call the gates of the underworld? Are they going to be able to enter that? And your overall thoughts of the chapter? Again, fine one. It was bordering average, but it did do a couple different things, and I like how it's focusing mainly on Gray since it seemingly is his arc, and that was, you know, a pretty decent thing. Let's just get a move on. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up if you can't wait to see what the hell Gray's gonna be able to do against this guy. I'm hoping he bumps into Natsu somehow and they double team him, because that would be interesting to see Chibi Natsu and Chibi Gray go up against this monster. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, Ultir got a nice ass.